Hi everyone, welcome to another week of Polyglots of the Week. Yes, you're seeing this video on Tuesday, and I apologize. Last week I was on vacation, and then this week I was just trying to, catch back up, and I got a little caught up and didn't realize what day it was. I'm incredibly sorry. So this week I kind of wanted to think a little bit about what to look for in language learning materials, whether it's for self-study or classroom. Some of you saw I'm applying to a teaching position that should hopefully work out, inshallah, and I'm not really talking about it because I don't want to jinx it, but part of it is I have to pick a textbook and write a syllabus and everything, because it's a university that's never taught this language before and such. So I'm sitting around with all these resources going, what book do I want to use? Is this the right book? Maybe there are books out there that I haven't seen before. And so it made me think of what do I look for in a text, be it for self-study, be it for classroom. For classroom, as a teacher, I like structure because I have no problem coming up with activities or things like that, and supplementing vocabulary and supplementing with other outside resources like digital resources and things. But I like having the structure of a text. As much as I've done language studies, sometimes it's just hard to sit down and be like, okay, week 1, we should probably learn this, and by week 5 they should know family, and by this, and then what grammar point is that? After a while you start to know a general order, and I do know general order, but it's a lot of work to create all those things out of thin air. And in all honesty, I don't really have time to create those things out of thin air. I have my own coursework to be doing, I have my own research to be doing, my own language study to be doing, so I don't really have the time to just come up with, let's create essentially an entire new textbook built by Eddie. It's just not going to happen. So when I look to teach a formal class kind of thing, I look for something that has a bit more structure already, and then I will then build upon that structure. For example, the book that I think I did end up choosing for this course I'm thinking of doing has very good structure. Their execution of everything isn't always great, but they have a good structure and a good framework that then I can build upon. Additionally, this course book is much better suited for a classroom versus personal study, and that's kind of the other thing I want to talk about. So when looking for a book for a classroom setting, you can use a book that's either a full immersion text, which is, for example, what I'm using right now for my own Turkish study, because I have a Turkish friend teaching me, so I can use a full immersion text, and then he can supplement the things that I don't know and help explain things. This book that I chose isn't full immersion, but for example, their dialogues, they don't have translations of the dialogues, they don't have transcriptions of the dialogues. You're kind of left to figure it out on your own, which, unless you're very intuitive or unless you have some background in this language, is kind of difficult. So it's not that it's bad, it's just that that's not really something I would choose for my own personal study, where I don't have a native speaker to work with, or I don't have a professor sitting with me a few hours a week to be explaining things to me. Now, when I look for something that's a self-study text, you do want something either in a language that you speak or in your native language or something, because unless you know something similar to help you grab everything that's written there, you're not going to get it. For example, I might be able to use a full immersion Italian text because I know French and Spanish and Portuguese. But if I used a full immersion Chinese text, I would be incredibly lost. Especially when you're using a new script. For example, my full immersion Turkish text, I might be able to grab some of it, but not all of it, especially once I get into more of the complex things of the different suffixes and what they imply and stuff like that. So having, an explanation in your native language or in a language that you speak definitely is something that you want to look for in a self-study text. For example, my Ossetian text, I've been currently using a French text, which is fine, I speak French, but every now and then you do get a word and you're like, I don't get that, and I'm not exactly sure of where they're going with this. And so I actually finally got an English translation of the first ever Russian Ossetian grammar, which is the grammar that this textbook is based off of. So having it in English is a bit easier at times when things get a bit more complicated, that it's like, oh, okay, it's a bit more innate and intuitive. I think, however, the most important thing for a self-study text that you can do or that you can look for is some sort of listening or visual or anything like that as for pronunciation purposes. I have done a couple languages where the text did not come with pronunciation, or yeah, where mostly the text didn't come with pronunciation, and you can supplement those things with YouTube, with native speaking friends, etc., etc. But if you can't come up with something like finding the right YouTube videos that'll help with elementary things, especially if it's like a rare language, if you can't get a hold of a native speaker via the internet or in person, you really want a text that comes with a CD or a DVD or something to make sure you're really grabbing onto proper pronunciation. Because in all honesty, right now, I've been doing Ossetian for a couple months now, and I've grabbed onto a lot of grammar and a decent amount of vocabulary, but my pronunciation to this day is probably quite atrocious, for a couple of reasons. One, I still can't do the Russian whatever. I haven't learned to do it properly, and it exists in Ossetian. And then also there are things like in Ossetian, s and sh and z and zh are allophones. So I'm used to reading Cyrillic for Tajik and for Russian, so s is always s, sh is always sh, z is always z, zh is always zh. It's fine. But now I'm reading things aloud and I'm like, well, that's probably not actually what it sounds like. And then I pull up a video of like an Ossetian speaker and it might have subtitles and I'm like, oh, wait. And so things like that, you really need to have something that has a CD, or you need to have access to a native speaker or something to help you with pronunciation. I think that's the thing I'm kind of realizing now, is I'm doing so much self-studying things to supplement the rest of my education, that I've just started grabbing books, and now I'm realizing that I don't have, a native speaker for that, or I don't have a CD that came with that one, or sound files that came with that one. So it's starting to get a bit difficult in certain areas. Luckily for me, some of them have very similar sound systems to other languages that I know, and I'm also used to reading IPA and different things like that, so if I get a more linguistic text, I can just essentially match what's written in transcription decently well. But there's nothing like having the recording of a native speaker actually saying things for you or reading a dialogue for you to really take that text to a new level and help you go further in your self-study. So, I mean, that's kind of all I have for today. I could keep rambling on about specific details, but I want to keep this short. But those are my major things. If you're out there and you're looking for something to teach, or something to use to have somebody teach you, and you want structure as far as like a semester goes, I would find a book with more structure and learn to use other resources to help supplement. I do a lot of supplementing with resources. If I can find a good book with good like grammar and vocabulary things, I can supplement everything else. But if you're doing self-study, I think something that's incredibly important is explanations in a language you know or know fluently, like your native language, as well as recordings to make sure that you're hearing and pronouncing and reproducing the sounds of that language properly. So, yes, that's sort of my little rant and spiel about language learning materials. I hope you enjoyed it, I guess. I know we have a couple more interesting things coming this week, and I start classes next week, so hopefully I'll have some more interesting things to talk about besides just Eddie studying this sorts of things. But for now, have a good Tuesday, I'm sorry, and I will see you all next week.